Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Soul Seekers podcast, where we believe that hunting has the power to transform lives through primal adventure as we share our mission of mentorship is conservation. To learn more about everything we do, check out our show on Carbon TV or go to soulseekersnation.com. Freedom on, everybody, and stay soulful. This podcast is also proudly brought to you by Onyx Hunt. When I first got into hunting, I kept hearing all about public land and different access and how to find different locations to hunt. I was like, well, how are people even identifying all this stuff? Well, sure enough, I came across the number one hunting GPS app, and that is Onyx Hunt. If you guys want to get better at hunting and go deeper into your scouting, Onyx Hunt is the number one GPS app for that. Join the millions of hunters who trust Onyx Hunt to find more game, discover new access, and hunt smarter. It was a game changer for me, and I know it's going to be a game changer for you if you've never used it. If you have used it, you know the power that it holds. Guys, I really hope you enjoy this episode. If you want to know more about Onyx, go to onyxmaps.com/hunt and check out their app. Be blessed, freedom on, and stay soulful. All right, guys, if you're in the market for a new hunting rifle this coming year, look no further than a Cowboy's rifle. I've been rocking their Coda rifle for the last couple seasons, and I've had great success with it. It's an amazing shooter, and every time I put one of their rifles in somebody's hands, they're like, oh, I got to get one of these. Cowboy's holds over 92 world and national records that are either broken or set on one of their actions or rifles. So they really set a higher level of accuracy. If you want to know more about Kelbley's rifles, go to kelbley.com. That's KELBLY.com. Tell them Johnny Mack sent you with Soul Seekers, and go enjoy shooting that much more in this coming hunting season. Be blessed, everybody. Go check out Cowboy Rifles. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of the Soul Seekers podcast. I'm your host, Johnny Mack, and today's episode is very serendipitous because you never know who you're going to run into in this world, and you never know who's watching, you never know who's looking, and really how we show up day in and day out needs to hold integrity, needs to hold justice, truth, and be a shining light in this world. You've followed along on this podcast long enough that you've heard that mentorship is conservation and that hunting has the power to transform lives through primal adventure. Well, today's episode is with a phenomenal human being, because I always have phenomenal human beings on this podcast. I don't like to spend that much time with people that aren't going to be building others up. And our guest today, Emily Stuchell, is a phenomenal human who I ended up meeting as she works within the hunting outdoor firearm industry. And we started connecting, and I was like, I need to know your story. You sound very intriguing. Well, it turns out she has a history of cowboy western shooting, clay targets in college, pistol and concealed weapons training, and now works in the industry. And so we're going to follow along with her on her journey and her story and have her talk about how important hunting, firearms, shooting, and all of that has been on her own personal journey in life and what it's provided for her. So without further ado, Emily, how are you doing?
I am good. I'm good. I'm so excited to be here. You're so sweet and kind. I feel like you don't even know me fully, and you already say all these nice things about me. So I appreciate it.
Everyone needs a hype man in their life, right? Like, oh yeah, let's go. You got this. Come on now.
No, absolutely. I'm so lucky. I have a lot of them. So I really, really appreciate it.
I love it. So, Emily, we're going to be talking about your fascinating story and journey because when I heard it the very first time in conversation with you, I was blown away. And the funny thing is you were reaching out to me about getting companies that you represent to get connected with me on my podcast. But I was like, well, wait a minute. What is your story? And your story is super fascinating. So, what is your history with firearms?
Oh my gosh. It is a very long story, but it all goes back to, you know, growing up, my parents always had firearms. My parents both concealed carried. They actually have pictures of them together, like in the 80s at the gun range together, like very funny. But it wasn't one of those things that like growing up we were shooting a lot. It was just like they always had them, and we knew safety, me and my little brother, we knew safety rules and everything, but it wasn't until I was like 10 that my grandfather had heard the local club had started doing cowboy action shooting. And he was like, this sounds really cool. And he asked my dad if my dad would like to do it with them. And my dad is like a very Ron Swanson type for any Parks and Rec fans out there. Like he's very kind of gruff and, very like manly and like, I don't know, he's kind of not a very emotional guy. And you would think that he would be really excited to just kind of have like a guy thing to go do. No, he like begged my mom to do it with him. He was like, let's go do this cowboy shooting thing together. Let's make this our thing. And she said, no, that can be your guy thing. Like, I don't need to do that. But luckily my dad insisted, and he believed that this was something that we could all do together as a family. So when I was, after about a year of them trying this together and shooting cowboy action together, all across New England, where I'm from, they were like, Emily, do you want to do this with us? And I, at the time, 11 years old, all I cared about was that I was going to dress up and I was going to get to be in front of people. That was my big thing. I was like, oh, people are going to watch me? Okay. Which is ridiculous, but it tells you everything you need to know about me. I didn't even really care about the guns. Like I was excited, but I was like, oh, I'm going to wear like pretty skirts and it'll be fun. But I quickly fell in love with the sport, fell in love with the people, fell in love with the guns. In Cowboy, we shoot 2 pistols, a rifle, a shotgun, everything pretty much, pre-1900. So really cool guns, really fun guns. And that was kind of my entry into this world that I never really foresaw myself being a part of, yet here I am. And it kind of, it turned into something even bigger from there. It became our family activity. Me, my brother, my parents, my grandparents, we all shot cowboy action together across the country. When I was around like 16, my parents kind of looked at me and they were like, cowboy action isn't going to pay for college. And we aren't either. So, so they were like, yeah. So they were like, we, think it would be great if you could look into some sort of shooting sport that allows for scholarships. So they said, basically, they were like, there's NCAA rifle or there's clay target sports. So, kind of see which one you like. And I was all about clay target sports because I was like, I get to be outside. I get to be shooting outside. I don't have to be, stuck indoors. And they put everything into teaching me, getting me the gun I needed, helping me learn. They took me to clinics. They took me to classes. They became trained certified coaches themselves. And that's when I was graduating high school, I was recruited to Lindenwood University in Missouri, which at the time had the top shotgun program in the country for collegiate clay target. So I was recruited there and shot there for 4 years, 4 national championships, had an excellent experience, got, sporting clays, international skeet, international trap, American skeet, American trap, got to do it all, got to travel. And it was an incredible experience. And I was at the time getting my degree in English and art history. And I was very convinced that my life was going to be spent, as an academic, as a professor. And as I was nearing the end of, college, I was like, I don't know. I think maybe like there's more that I want to do kind of out there. But I still wasn't really sold on the idea of like guns are going to be my entire life. They're going to be my future. I love art and I loved literature. So I thought, well, I'll at least get a graduate degree. And it's so funny, like you talked about serendipity. I mean, really, like I feel like my entire life has been serendipity. I mean, every opportunity has come up just kind of out of sheer like luck and happenstance. And I've been so fortunate. One of my teammates, Morgan Kraft, who is actually on Rio's Olympic team for international skeet, she posted about Georgia Southern University looking for a graduate assistant for their shooting sports center, which is a shooting sports education center on a college campus, indoor range, archery range, firearms, archery, everything. And they were looking for a grad assistant to come help teach their programs. And in turn, they would pay for the grad degree. I thought to myself, this is like the perfect opportunity for me. So I took a chance. I had never been to Georgia really before at all. And I said, I'll apply. I'll see if I get it. And I interviewed and I got it. And I moved there without ever seeing the college campus. And I taught there I got my master's in public administration, and I taught, concealed carry classes. I mostly did women's education classes. So I had all women's firearms classes to help women, get comfortable with firearms, teach them, the basics, safety. And then, of course, I taught a lot of archery programs at the college as well. So it was at that point that I started thinking, okay, maybe this industry is where I'm meant to be. And when I was getting ready to graduate, I started applying for jobs at every gun company I could think of. And then a lot of jobs later, I have arrived here. So that's kind of where that's where the story's gone. I graduated with my graduate degree in 2019, and I've been in the industry ever since.
Fascinating. Absolutely fascinating. So many things. We're going to break this down. I got some questions.
I know, and that's like the quick version.
I love it. You're a national champion 4 times.
4 times.
Is that as an individual or as a team?
So that was team score. Yeah.
Heck yeah.
So we had to shoot. Yeah. So it's like a combined score to win for like top school.
Yeah.
So.
Congratulations. Yeah.
Thank you.
Do they give you like a championship ring or anything like really cool that you're like, look at this?
I do have 4 championship rings. They are giant, and they live in a box in my desk at work. And every now and then when I feel like I need to remind myself that I know what I'm doing, I open it and look at them, and then I close it and put it back. So.
Oh my gosh. So I have a championship football ring from college, and every now and then I'll pull it out, not because like it's a team sport, right? Like I contributed in my own right. I wasn't the starter.
Yeah.
I wasn't, but for street cred, like, oh yeah, you want to see something? Check this out. And all the kids are like, oh, Dad, whoa, like.
I'll wear them sometimes. Like occasionally, I'll wear one to SHOT Show. Yeah. Just because it kind of like fits the vibe. But other than that, they don't really make many appearances. They're pretty loud. So.
I wish I would have known this beforehand. I'd expect to have you on the hand. Like you got to smoke a cigar and like that picture of Michael Jordan when he had all his rings and just put them on the fingers and just be like, yeah.
I'll send you a picture.
There you go. I love it. So you went from like cowboy shooting, which that sounds like truly fascinating. Like
it is.
Is that just more like cosplay for mature people? I don't know. Like I'm not trying to rip on like cosplay, but you know what I mean? Like it's more applicable.
No, it's so I mean, when you put it that way, I guess it kind of is. Like we all come up with names. So we have different names, like we have aliases. So we don't go by our real names when we're shooting cowboy. But it is very much like, quote unquote, a sport. There's really no money in it. You're not competing for a cash prize. There's no league or anything. It's open to everyone, but essentially you are shooting as fast as you can, and you're timed, and you're shooting to see who is, the fastest shooter. So, every time you shoot, you're shooting, 2 pistols, a rifle, and a shotgun. And there is a range officer that's timing you, and they write down your score. And if you miss targets, it adds time. So if you miss a target, that's plus 5 seconds. If you shoot the targets out of order, so every stage has an order. If you shoot out of order, that's plus 10 seconds. And so on and so on. And it's all based on time. So, if you shoot the fastest time, you win. And I mean, people don't realize how huge the sport is, because it's kind of, like you said, it is a little different. Obviously, you're coming up with a name. You have to dress the part. So, you have to wear Western clothing and not like, t-shirt and jeans. There's very specific rules. And honestly, I mean, I still compete, not as much as I'd like to, of course, but I shoot a few times a year and I go to like national championships in Oklahoma and there's about 800 shooters that compete there. So it's a pretty big thing. People don't realize it, but it's honestly, I've met some of the greatest people in the world competing in Cowboy, and it's really what has shaped kind of my foundation is not just like with firearm safety. I mean, the safety involved in that sport is so rigorous. It's a lot of rules, and that's really what kind of instilled those foundational safety rules in me. But it also that's kind of what created my love of firearms and my love of this world and this industry
Mm.
is that's where
Yeah, I'm on Instagram right now on my computer, and I'm looking at a picture of you in your Western attire, and I absolutely love it. How how many people were named Quick Draw McGraw? What was it?
you know, well, it's funny. So every person, so you register your name. So only one person has your name. You can't repeat names. So, and you, when you register it with, so it's Single Action Shooting Society. When you register with them, um, they look up the name to like you put it in a database. And if nobody else has that name, then you can register it. But if somebody else does, then you cannot. You have to come up with something different.
So what's your name?
My name is Snazzy McGee.
Yes.
Yeah. Yep. And it's so funny. I work and you'll find out this about me as we keep talking, but I love having like crazy random part-time jobs. It's just how I like to fill my time. And I currently work part-time at a cowboy boot store. And it's funny because I brand all my cowboy boots with SM.
Ooh.
And people are like, those aren't your initials. And I'm like, well, they kind of are. It's a long story.
It's like an author having a pen name or stage name
Yes,
or yeah, yeah. I
exactly.
love it. I
Well,
love.
it's funny. You'll shoot with people for like 10 years and never know their real name. You'll only refer to them as their cowboy name.
Well, back when I used to work at REI and I was really big into the backpacking culture. I mean, I still am. Just now, I carry a weapon with me when I'm doing it. You learn that on places such as the Appalachian Trail or the Pacific Crest
Mhm.
Trail that you actually have trail names, and that's how people know you. And
Oh,
so you actually don't go by your real name when you're on the trail as well.
that's too funny.
So I got a kick out of that. So let me ask you this: in a world of instant gratification, in a world of drive-through restaurants, fast food, instant, 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 was your cowboy shooting a way for you and your family to then like establish your relationship with each other? More like the family that shoots together stays together.
100,000%. My family, we are really close, and I think shooting has really created the like bond that we have. When we go cowboy shooting together, I mean, we're all together the whole weekend. We're going out to dinner together. We're a lot of times we get Airbnbs together. It's like family vacations for us, honestly. Some families go to Disney World. We go shoot, cowboy matches around the country. And it's one of those things. I mean, thinking back to my childhood, when I was really young, we did like old street rod shows. We have a 1937 Ford that we used to bring. And then as we got older, we kind of, through my childhood, we did a lot of hiking and stuff like that. But we never had like a group activity that we all did together or that we all loved to do. I was very into theater and I played violin and I was very into the arts. And my brother was very into like science and math. And then my parents, like, they weren't really into either of those things. So we kind of all disconnected. So when we all found shooting and came together and did that together, that's really what has bonded us. I mean, when we talk on the phone, I mean, me and my mom talk every day. Cowboy shooting or some sort of shooting gets mentioned pretty much every day. So yeah, it's definitely created a bond. I mean, now I've been shooting. I don't want to age myself now, but I've been shooting about 19 years. Um, and and we still do it together. I mean, we make family trips. I mean, even I'm 29. I'm living on my own in South Carolina, and they're still in Connecticut, where I'm from, and we still all make the point to get together and do these shoots together.
So cool. I love that. Did did it ever take place on a horse? Is there any horse incorporated? Like,
We never did that, but there are a lot of shooters. There's actually it's so funny. There's a guy in our industry who runs a lot of social media for different brands, including one of my clients, and he actually does that. He does mounted cowboy shooting. So yeah, it is very similar. It's pretty much just pistols. And you're shooting at balloons with blanks, and you're on a horse. I've always thought it's the coolest thing. My mom had horses. She grew up with horses. She could totally do it. I definitely would love to try it someday, but you need a horse, you need a trailer, you need to do all, it's a lot more. And honestly, my dad will tell you, having 4 family members with 4 guns each and a lot of ammo to reload, he doesn't need more things to worry
another
about.
thing. I was gonna say, and that's one of the biggest things nowadays. It feels like with inflation, with prices of ammo, it's such a
Hmm.
consumable, and you hate to have ammo and guns and then not shoot them, but at the same time, it's like, man, it was so much money to get this, and I don't have that much extra money to go out and buy ammo now.
Yeah.
How do you manage that, or what advice do you have for people to go about that?
I mean, it's tough, especially having a hobby that does cost money. Whether you're sporting clay shooting or cowboy shooting or really any type of shooting, it's gonna be expensive. I definitely tell people, especially if you're gonna shoot a lot. I mean, my dad will listen to this podcast and be like, she's talking about this, and I'm the one who reloads. But he is, I'll give him the shout out. My
Thanks,
dad has
Dad.
been really, yeah, thanks, Dad. But he's been really smart. He's stocked up, and he reloads everything. So he saves a lot of money by reloading. So I always tell people, reloading is an awesome. I mean, there's a lot of people nowadays that are doing a lot of research and getting into growing their own food and getting into,
Yes.
and that's a big reason people get into hunting, which is so exciting and great. But, one thing a lot of people don't think about is ammunition. It's getting expensive. It's getting harder to get, especially in certain states. I'm from Connecticut. Certain states like that, it can be difficult to get what you need as far as firearms and shooting and ammunition. So reloading is kind of a way to take that into your own hands. And there's so many resources out there, so many YouTubers talking about it, lots of different reloading presses and things. And it seems a little daunting, but especially watching my dad go through the process of learning about reloading and getting involved in it and doing it, it's really powerful to have control of your own ammo source. You can, and we reshoot, when we shoot our brass at a match, we collect that and we bring it home, and dad cleans it, everything, reloads it. It's like recycling.
Yeah.
So that's something to definitely help with cost, especially if you're wanting to shoot a lot.
Yeah.
So
I love that.
that's
Snazzy McGee, I really appreciate what you what you got going on right
of
now.
course.
I love it. So talk about this transition from cowboy shooting to shotgunning. I mean, you were already shooting a shotgun in Western cowboy style shooting.
Mhm.
You wanted to get your education paid for. How easy, or how like the concept of being like, oh man, I'm a collegiate shooter sounds phenomenal. But I grew up in the Northwest, and it was extremely hard as a PE teacher to bring archery into my schools. I had a lot of pushback. And then when I said, hey, I want to bring air guns into my school and teach that, they were like, no. So is it more culturally accepted where you grew up, or what was the process?
Well, it's really interesting. Like I said, I'm from Connecticut. So Connecticut is definitely not known for being a very conservative state. Firearms are not as widely accepted there. There's a lot of regulation on them. And a lot of people would think, how does this girl from Connecticut end up in firearms? But it's almost like cowboy shooting, those guns aren't regulated like ARs are. And it's something that kind of is one of the things that pushed us towards cowboy, where we don't have to worry about ARs being regulated and barrel lengths and those kind of things. But I will say, I'm very I'm very much an exception to the rule. I have a lot of friends, especially from the shotgun team, that grew up in the Midwest, that grew up in the South, that had high school shooting teams.
Hmm.
They were in high school, they shot clay targets in high school. I did not have that, but I did have a school that I was very lucky was super supportive. I had a school principal that was super supportive, really open-minded, really accepting of the fact that I was taking days off of school to go to competitions and go train. And when I went to college, colleges, you'd be surprised how many colleges have clay target teams. I mean, Yale has a team, Harvard has a team. It's honestly, especially with clay targets, I've found people look at it as something, it's like a very old, expensive, sort of like fancy sport for a lot of people in the Northeast. So to say that I was shooting clay targets was a little more accepted rather than like, oh, I'm going to shoot ARs or pistols or
Mm.
something like that. So I found that that was definitely much more accepted. But honestly, I went to college in the Midwest, like I said, shooting teams at high schools and colleges, much more common there,
Mm.
much more accepted. And at our school, our team had, when I joined the team, we had won nationals maybe 9 or 10 times before that consecutively. So we were known as a pretty respected sport at our school.
Hmm.
So, and I've also just never really been ashamed of it. It's one of those things. I was an English student, right? And I was in art history. So I had a lot of students in my classes that definitely didn't like guns or didn't accept guns,
Yeah.
but accepted me and accepted that that was what I did. And once they learned about it and learned about what I was doing, it was definitely different. They were able to kind of see what I was doing was it was just as normal as soccer or football or anything like that to them.
Okay, so I want to talk about that and really expand on this topic because when it comes to the promotion of firearms and
Mhm.
Second Amendment and political lines get drawn very quickly and
Yes.
people develop opinions
Yes.
very fast and opinions don't stem from any experience. They just are talking heads repeating some other information. But one of the best things that we can do, and this ties into hunting as well, especially like when you have ballot box initiatives going on in Colorado and Oregon, and where they're trying, the opposing side, is wanting to strip away our ability to feed ourselves, our ability to engage with nature, interact with nature, and enjoy this wonderful world that we've been blessed with. Is one of the best things that we can do as ambassadors for hunting, shooting, firearm sports, archery, whatever it is be a likable human being. Because it sounds silly, but when other people across the aisle like you, they're more willing to be like, oh, well, they're not so bad. So what they're doing, like, they're not a bad person. They wouldn't be doing bad things. It's a horrible,
Mhm.
like, it's not a justifiable or defendable position. And yet it's kind of reality for this world.
Yeah, absolutely. No, you're right. It's almost like adding humanity to it because I feel like people see firearms and see a certain kind of person. When I tell people that I'm in the firearms industry, that I've kind of made my life out of shooting firearms competitively, if they've known me previously, they're like, "Really? I mean, you do pottery and you go to art museums. I mean, how are you in the firearms industry?" But I think it adds a certain level of humanity. Like to me, my firearms are a tool. They're something I used just like a soccer ball or a football when I was in college. They're something that I use to protect myself, and there's something I use. It's so strange, especially having grown up with them. To me, I just never saw them as this politically divisive thing until especially recently. I mean, especially the last few years, you tell someone you shoot firearms or you're into firearms, and they immediately see you as a certain kind of person.
Hmm.
And I love being able to change people's minds about that. I have a lot of friends. Like I said, I grew up in Connecticut. I have a lot of friends that are much more on the liberal side of thinking and politics, but being able to have an open conversation with them and being able to just talk about these things. They're so understanding, and they're so open to learning about that. It's really just about sitting down and having a nice normal conversation. You'd be surprised how far that can get you. So,
That is very true. Like at the end of the day, we are all just humans. We all just want to be
mhm,
loved. We all want to be accepted, and we all want to be in community, right? I'm a
absolutely.
huge proponent, and I'm doing some work currently in regards to the concept of Maslow's hierarchy of needs,
Yep.
and how that and hunting are so intertwined, and yet, like you said, when people remove the humanity of it, then it's so easy to cast judgment or stones or however you want to.
Yeah, and it's a lot of times, I mean, especially having been in the education part of it for so many years, I I think it humanizes the other side too. I had women come to my class who, I mean, I had one woman that grew up in Venezuela and grew up where guns were a very scary thing, and they were always used to inflict harm or something that was negative.
Hmm.
And she was really scared coming into that class, and I, instead of trying to convince her otherwise, I was like, listen, you like respect them, and a lot of people don't. And she was one of the safest people in my class. She learned so much, she overcame her fear. And to me, that was so special, being able to see the other side. Not everyone is as blessed to grow up like I did with firearms. Some people have had very different experiences than I have. And I think it's about just being able to humanize everything and being able to have empathy for both sides, and empathy towards, showing how hunting can be great in this circle of life,
Mm, mm,
how hunting is not just seen as, oh, you're just killing an animal for no reason. Like, when you really teach someone about the magic that is like harvesting your own food, you're using every piece of that animal, the respect you have for that animal, I think people really see things differently. So, especially nowadays with such a divisive time, it can be hard to have those conversations, but being, even, yeah, you're right, just being like someone who wants to have those conversations,
hmm
I think means.
Do you did you feel like you couldn't speak about it very well in defense of when you were younger, or what got you to the point where like, no, I need to be an advocate for hunting and shooting or shooting firearm safety, or do you know what I mean? Because a lot of people
Yeah.
let fear capture them. They're like, I don't know enough. I don't know the talking
Mhm.
points. I don't know what to say, or I freeze under pressure. And ultimately, you know, I was always taught you only get one first impression, right?
Yeah.
And so when
Mhm.
you have that opportunity to speak up and be like, no, actually, like when it comes to hunting and conservation, it's like, oh, well, the Pittman-Robertson Act. Did you know that billions of dollars are actually flowing into the conservation of wildlife and wild places specifically because of the purchases that yada yada yada, right? And
Yeah.
that goes for the Second Amendment in hunting and firearm or shooting and firearms as well. Um, but was there ever a time where you felt like you couldn't speak about it, or didn't know how to speak about it?
Yeah, I will be very honest. A lack of words has never been something I've suffered from. Um, I've always been a talker. I've always been a very emotional person. I always speak with my heart. But yeah, definitely, in school, I mean, there were some kids that kind of saw me as the crazy gun girl, and that was, those people didn't really matter to me. I think the turning point for me was in high school. It was my senior year, and I had a really great coach my parents were working with, that was very much an advocate for the sport and just on the politics side. And I had never really been interested in politics,
Hmm.
but there was an initiative in Connecticut to start taxing ammunition to a very, very insane degree. And there was a basically open kind of council meeting at the state capitol. And people could come ask questions. And I went with this coach and my parents, and I was chosen to be one of those people to ask questions. And I had things prepared, and it was definitely a very scary moment, talking back and forth with it was one of our state legislatures. I don't know. I don't think it was our governor. It was somebody, pretty high up, and they were making these decisions, and they asked me a few questions, and it was definitely a little scary, but I've always been somebody that, I'm in marketing. I love to talk and I kind of have a lot of ideas to get out. So I just stayed true to what I felt and what I knew. And, not everybody's going to see your point of view, and that's okay as long as you're true to yourself and what you believe and what you're saying and you can stand on that, then that's what matters. And that's what I did. And that was kind of that turning.
Okay, let's talk about being true to yourself, because that has a lot to do with um, the opinions and the viewpoints in which we hold.
Hmm.
The issue is when people go with this idea of being true to yourself, but out of fear, which you mentioned
Yeah.
earlier, then it puts them instantly at odds. And I truly
Hmm.
believe that fear is the only thing that holds the society back from joining together and overcoming,
Yeah.
right? Like, guns aren't bad. Guns don't kill
Hmm.
people. Bad people make bad choices using
Yep.
a tool, which is an inanimate object, right? Like, the whole
Yeah.
term, well, this is, I'm going to hold this for after I finish this point, but what I'm going with is this idea of, like, people are afraid of firearms because they don't know it. And if they were taught it, they
Hmm.
wouldn't be so afraid, right?
Yeah. Absolutely.
And so we fear, as humanity, we fear the unknown. And that's a part of what we need to challenge ourselves and be a courageous society, a courageous people, and be like, no. Yeah, I believe in the Bible, uh, that, in the Bible it says God did not give us a spirit of fear, but of love, power, and a sound mind. So if I am either doing something out of fear, then I'm not able to actually expand and grow and take in all this wonder and creation that has been given to me. If I do things always out of love, the opposite of fear, then the world is my oyster and I get to just really, like, blossom and take it all in.
Absolutely.
Have you ever chewed on that a little bit?
No, definitely. I mean, that's a lot to take in, but I think especially in my early days in the industry, I think, I have always been a very confident person, but those first few years in the industry definitely knocked me down a little bit. It's a tough industry. It's very male dominated. It's very much, I had come from kind of, I don't want to say being on top of the world, but in a place where I was respected and I was kind of starting at the bottom of the totem pole, kind of having to prove to people that I knew what I was talking about and that I knew what I was doing.
Mm,
And, sure, sometimes I didn't know what I was doing, but with firearms, some people, like, I was confident, I knew how to shoot. I knew what the consumers liked and wanted, and a lot of my opinions were not really always listened to like I wanted them to be. And I think the first few years of my industry, it instead of making me stronger, it kind of made me a little quieter.
mm,
And as I've grown in the industry, I'm really fortunate to be in a really good place now in my career where I have a team and a management team that really respects me and respects my experience and honors my opinions. And it's really an incredible thing to be a part of. But when you're not a part of it, especially at a young age, coming straight out of grad school, jumping into the industry, working for a really big company with a lot of people who definitely came from all different backgrounds, all different experience levels. It was a big melting pot.
yeah.
And it was definitely where I kind of started to question myself. But that's part of life. I mean, I think sometimes you're going to be fearful. You can't be strong 24/7. And I learned so much in those few years of just about myself and about where I wanted to go in life and where I wanted to go in my career. There were a lot of times where I thought to myself, is this industry for me? Is this where I want to be? And I persevered and I stuck it out and I worked hard and, I made mistakes along the way, but I day to day, I do continually, if I mess something up or if something happens that doesn't go my way, that fear does creep back, that, oh my gosh, like I'm messing up, I'm not doing well. I've always been the person that's a perfectionist. I don't like to mess up. I don't like to do things wrong. But I think as we grow and as we mature and as we get older, we lose that fear and we gain experience. And we, instead of letting that fear guide us, we start to trust ourselves more.
Yeah.
And it's been a really cool journey. And I have a lot of people that have helped me get there. It definitely has not been a solo journey. So that's one of the great things about this industry is there's so many great people.
Well, it's amazing what mentorship can do for you, huh?
Yes, absolutely. I've been really, really blessed with the great people that I've met in this industry. And like you said, serendipity, all of them have been very serendipitous circumstances. Even my boss now, it was a very, very unique chance meeting at SHOT Show many years ago. And years later, he was calling me and asking me if I was looking for a position and if I'd like to join his company. So you just never know where it's going to end up.
Awesome. I love that. And by the way, speaking about your lack of self-confidence in that first year and a half of being in the industry, you should have had those rings on and just walked in being like, listen, peeps, you see this?
Oh,
Very few people
darn
have
it.
these.
You're right. That would have been the ticket.
Be like a Flavor Flav clock, but be all your rings just, yeah.
It just would have been really tough to type, but other than that, we could have gone through it.
Yeah. All right. So talk to me about this idea of you being a firearm instructor. And you were tailored towards females, correct? Your courses?
Yeah, so I taught a lot of basic safety classes to everyone. But my favorite class to teach, my class that I taught the most of was a women's firearms class. It was just a basic level, firearm safety class,
Mhm.
geared towards women. All women were in the class, and we taught them all the basics of, loading, unloading, making sure it's safe, range safety, and then we would take them out on the range in the second part of the class and have live range fire with multiple different common concealed carry guns. So it was also kind of geared towards helping them figure out if they wanted to carry a gun or if they wanted to purchase a firearm, they could try out a bunch of different ones and see what they liked the most and see what felt comfortable for them.
What did you
So yeah, that's a lot of what I was doing.
Yeah, what did you find as the most common or a couple of the most common barrier to entry excuses that would arise consistently?
Well, yeah, I always asked women at the beginning of my class. I said, introduce yourself, say where you're from, and say what brought you here today. And a lot of them said, they had been wanting to take the class for a long time or wanting to learn for a long time. And their husband said that they would take them and they never did, or their dad said they would take them and they never did. And or they had a really bad experience learning from their husband or their father, and then they put off that for a long time. That was a big excuse I heard, kind of just having a negative experience or not wanting to learn from their husband or partner or father or some sort of male figure in their life. And I think, I was very lucky to have a dad who was like, no, girls can shoot too. I want you to learn. But there's a lot of women there that were like, my husband has a gun, he has guns, but I never wanted to learn from him or he never wanted to teach me and it just never happened. So that was kind of a barrier for a lot of women. Women like to learn from women, especially with something like a firearm. I think it can be really scary to learn from a male partner or, a male counterpart, because a lot of times, we go into gun stores and we have men kind of trying to tell us what we want or tell us what we need. And, we're just built differently. We have smaller hands. A lot of women don't have as much experience shooting as a lot of men do, because that's just how society has set things up. Like men go hunt and shoot and, women learn other things. I was very fortunate to not have that experience, but a lot of my friends did. So that was always a barrier for women, I think, is just having either a negative experience or not wanting an experience with their husband, father, etc. And I think another thing was just the fear of firearms in general, not knowing, the fear of the unknown, really. A lot of them, loud noises, it's scary. I could hurt myself, I could hurt someone. But we always started the class in the classroom with dummy rounds with firearms that, of course, I showed all of them, unloaded, everything. So they felt a lot safer knowing that they could handle the guns by themselves, unloaded with fake rounds first to really get comfortable with them.
Yeah.
I think that's something a lot of people don't think about with training. People will be like, oh, yeah, I'll take you to the range. Let's go to the range. I'll teach you. But I think teaching really starts at home. Teaching starts before you go to the range. I think that is an integral part of training, especially for people who are new to firearms in general.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. Because all we see is Hollywood and TV constantly. And like, that's not something to be taking and having that be your view of firearms.
Yes.
Interesting. So what's the next step for you?
Next step, I'm just really loving where I'm at right now. I was in manufacturing for a long time, so I worked for a lot of companies that were manufacturers, had great experiences, learned a lot, and now I'm on the agency side. I've been at an agency for about a year and a half now, and honestly, just growing there. I'm really lucky. Like I said, I have a great management team that really honors and trusts my experience, and they want to see me grow. I'm learning a lot more right now. Actually, I'm diving more into email marketing. So that's something I've always had a strength in, but that's something I really want to become like an expert in.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's something I'm really diving into in my agency. We're kind of, as marketing manager, I fill a lot of roles and I'm kind of this big umbrella and I do a lot of things. But, my boss and I are kind of trying to start to narrow that more and focus on some different things. So, yeah, going into some more email marketing, looking more into that, getting new clients. I love having different clients. I love being able to work with so many different companies and brands and people, because I just love people. That's, at the end of the day, that's why I'm in marketing. It's just, I love people. I love talking to people, and it's what makes me like love going to work every day. So, but yeah, that's next for me professionally. I mean, personally, I'm living in South Carolina. I'm loving it. I've been here about a year. Me, my boyfriend, and my cat, just enjoying life. And
Does he shoot? Does
he
he?
oh, yes, he probably likes guns more than I do, and that's really saying something. I mean, I love guns, but I have a lot of different interests. I love pottery. I love reading. Me and my friends have a book club. I love pretty much any craft you can think of. And I work part-time at a cowboy boot store. I work part-time at a restaurant. And those are kind of hobbies to me, honestly. But for him, his hobby is guns. He loves guns. If he could shoot every day of his life, he would. That is his 100%. We met working at an AR manufacturer. So
Yes.
yes, he's very into it. And honestly, it's great having him at home, because whenever I have a marketing project and I'm working on a video or a campaign, I can show him first and be like, do you think this is dumb, or would you buy this?
You have your target audience right there. Oh, beautiful. Okay, so let me ask you this, because this is something that I feel like the majority of these listeners to this podcast need to hear, because everything is something that they can take and apply it in their life moving forward. You started out shooting, but you had whitetail hunting experience in your youth with your family.
Yeah.
Ultimately, with your comfort level in firearms and shooting paper or steel targets or whatever, was it really fun to actually transition your skill set over to the purpose of firearms, and that is to be able to take the life of something and then enjoy that on a hunt?
Yeah, absolutely. It was, I'll never forget my first whitetail hunt. It was honestly really scary and really exciting. I had actually worked at a camp in Vermont that was geared towards teaching people hunting and firearm safety. So I had done a lot of hunting education up until that point. And that was, finally I was on the whitetail hunt that I had always thought about. And I was so excited. But it was one of those things, like you're getting ready to take that shot and your heart is beating. And it's simultaneously, it was, I think maybe 13, and I was terrified. But it's, once it's over, you've shot the animal and you're able to like respect that moment and take that home. And, you've been through every process of taking down that animal, dressing it, taking it home, cooking it. It's really powerful, just like as far as being an independent, part of society, but also just like a strong, independent woman. Like I'm like, man, I can do this, and it's exciting. I think hunting teaches a lot about, not just respect for nature, but also just self-confidence, being able to have that knowledge to do that and that experience and ability to do that is something, not everyone has. And it's really exciting to be able to do that. And I was really fortunate enough to be able to do that and learn. And through my career and through my experiences, I've gotten to go on more hunts. And I'm actually going on a waterfowl hunt this fall with an all women's group. And I'm really excited about that. So
You're going to
it,
teach them all how to shoot a shotgun, just absolutely crush it, I imagine.
oh yeah, it's going to be just ducks down every day, all day.
I love it. I usually ask this question to people who come on to share more of like the hunting side of things, and I always
Yeah.
ask like, "What has hunting done for you?" My question is more, "What has being someone who shoots and promotes the Second Amendment done for you?"
It is the reason, like, for my entire life that, like, I sit here looking at my apartment and I mean, I've had so many experiences and met so many people that I otherwise would have never met. I mean, I would not be the person I am today sitting right here if it were not for the shooting sports and for firearms and for the Second Amendment. And I'm it's like I said, it's one of those things I never planned for, but it happened. And now I have some of my dearest friends because of this industry. I have, this beautiful life that I've built for myself, here. And
Yeah.
I have, but my family is so excited. I love calling my mom every day and talking to her about what this client did or what project we're doing or what hunt I get to go on. They just love hearing about all these experiences I get to do, because they're involved in it too. And it's almost too much to put into words. It's really shaped my entire life up until this point. And I know I said I have so many different hobbies, so many other things that I love to do, but really this has been like my life's work. My every single piece of my shooting sports past and firearms has led me to where I am today. And I'm really blessed and really thankful for all the incredible people like you that I've gotten to meet so serendipitously. And it's something I can't wait to do for another 10 years, 20 years, 30 years.
Yeah.
I can't wait to teach my kids how to shoot. I can't wait to just continue shooting with my family.
So that was a question I was going to ask you is you said you can't wait to teach your kids how to shoot.
Yeah.
With you being raised shooting and all that, have you kind of had a vision about what age you want to introduce kids to shooting or how you would actually go about that?
I think for every kid, it's different. For me, my parents decided I was mature enough. And I mean, they knew I was mature enough when I was 10, 11. My brother, it took a little longer. He was maybe 13 or 14 when they decided that he was mature enough to be handling a firearm safely.
Mm-hmm.
So, I think every kid is different. There are some kids I know in cowboy shooting that I met and they started shooting when they were 8 years old. They started cowboy shooting and they were incredible. Some of the best cowboy shooters in the world right now are people that are below the age of 21. I mean, it's really incredible to see. And thinking about introducing them to it, I think I was really unique in the sense, and it's good and bad. I didn't really have this fear when I started shooting firearms,
Mm,
and I think that's great. But I also, it took me a while to understand why others had fear. And I think that's a big part of understanding how to educate, is understanding why people have that fear and how to help them overcome it.
right.
Because it's something I never really had. Like I said, I was more concerned about the skirt I was going to wear and the cowboy boots I was going to pick out. So I really want my kids someday to have that healthy respect, not necessarily fear, but understand that what they're handling, what they're shooting, what they're using is, it's a tool to, have a great time, to do this great thing that mom's always done, and cowboy shooting or clay target shooting, but it's also something, that needs to be really well respected, and those safety rules that my dad drilled into me are
Hmm.
going to be much more nicely, I'll say, drilled into them.
There are some children's books that, man, I want to say Little Jake, but I could be wrong. It's My First BB Gun, My First
Yeah.
Rifle, My First Bow, and they're, cartoonish for kids, and it goes through the safeties. And I've been reading those to my boys, and then they end up reading them to me. I have three small
Oh,
children, and it's
yeah.
really fun to go through that, and then all right, how there's a gun here. What do we always do about guns? We treat them like they're loaded. Okay, good, awesome. Do we ever touch a gun without adult permission? No. And I want to believe that my kids will be safe with firearms because
Mhm.
of me going through that and instilling that with them at a young age. Um, and these resources are out there for parents, and I think that's something that people need to remember, is that there is stuff that you can start hammering in, right? In the book of Proverbs, it says, train up a child in the way they should go, and when they're old they will not depart from it, right? So in order for us to set up that next generation of Second Amendment defenders, and people that stand for truth, justice, um, unity, sovereignty, and all that, a big part of that is knowing how to use a firearm and respecting the tool and the power that it holds.
Yeah, and it's like you said, there's so many resources out there. Like I said, I got to go to a, like camp that was focused towards firearm safety and hunting. There's so many things like that out there that that Fish and Wildlife are running, that local gun clubs are running. I always encourage people, reach out to your local gun club. People in the firearms community, I mean, really 99% of the time, they want to welcome people in regardless of race, gender, background. They want you to be a part of their community.
Hmm.
So, if you have children that you want to teach, but you maybe don't have the resources, there are classes, there are courses, there are local gun clubs, there are people out there, there's organizations, there's nonprofits that are all working towards helping teach firearms education and help teach young people firearms education. And that's why I'm here today.
That's
So
beautiful. Last question, and this is a little bit different. Wanted to ask because there's a lot of people that when I start having conversations with them, they're like, "Oh man, you have a podcast in the hunting world, or a TV show, or you do outdoor speaking and engagement
mhm.
events." A lot of people are always like, "How do I get into the outdoor industry?" And
Ooh.
you went from theater, Shakespeare, pottery, cowboy shooting to being an NCAA champion, and then showing up and getting hired in the outdoor industry. What advice could you give anybody?
I think, I mean, as someone who's sat on interviews and helped hire people, I mean, just having a passion and an interest for this industry goes a long way. Like I said, I mean, when I applied for my first job in this industry, on paper, I mean, I had an English and art history bachelor's, and then I had a public administration master's. None of that really spoke to marketing. None of that really spoke to, my love of firearms. But the person that was hiring me took a chance on me, and they knew that I had a personal interest in firearms and the outdoors, and that was really what helped grow, my career. And I think having an interest, being, having a passion for it is number one for me, especially having worked with so many people that have an interest and a passion for it. It makes the difference when you're marketing a product or creating a story campaign, et cetera, for a product that you are passionate about and believe in, that's in your industry. So I always tell people, this industry, it's not, we're not gatekeeping, there isn't a wall up. We want people in this industry. We want people to grow this industry and help keep it alive and help keep it, changing with the times and adjusting to help. There's so many people out there now that maybe aren't as conservative as a lot of people, but still want to be in firearms, want to be in the outdoors, And I think for a long time, there's been this kind of like misconception that there's that political divide, and those, people that are maybe more left leaning versus right aren't interested in that side of things, but they are. And I think, when people have that passion and people have that interest, getting into the industry, get your foot in the door however you can. I started as a copywriter. I started writing product descriptions. That was my first job in the industry. And I grew from there, and now I'm a marketing manager. So you never know where that path can take you. Just get your foot in the door that you're excited about and that you're interested in, and go from there.
I love it. I like to say that the universe is rigged in our favor, right?
Yeah.
That there are no coincidences in life. Everything we use the term serendipity, but ultimately it's all meant to be the way it's supposed to be. So, Emily, thank you so much for coming on the podcast and sharing your story and your wisdom and knowledge with Soul Seekers Nation. It's very, very refreshing to hear it.
Oh, thank you for having me. It's been great, and I really appreciate your time.
Oh, it's been a pleasure. Everybody, thank you for tuning in to this episode. If you liked it, the best thing that you can do is share it. Share it, spread the word. Spread the word, the gospel about the Second Amendment, about firearms, about hunting, and how it has the power to transform lives through primal adventure. Guys, be courageous. Don't be timid. Don't let fear capture you, grip you, and control you. Be a courageous human being. Lead with courage, because courage is contagious. And when we stand up and fight for what we believe in, it gives everyone else the opportunity to feel like they're not alone. And we all need community in this world. So thank you for tuning in this episode. Remember, if you are interested in winning a Cowboy's Atlas Tactical Rifle Action, you got today left. Monday, today is going to be the last day. So for those of you who are listening to this podcast after the 16th, too bad for you. I hope that you entered. But those of you who are listening on Monday the 16th, today is the last day you can enter. You got to go to Instagram and go to Soul Seekers Nation's Instagram or Carbon TV or Kelbley's and go to the post that was posted on Monday the 9th. Tag 2 people, like the post, follow Kelbley's, follow Carbon TV, follow Soul Seekers, and you'll be entered to win a $1,200 Ultimate, one of the best rifle actions on the market. So easy. It's my way of giving back to all of you, and thank you for tuning in. Be blessed. Remember that hunting has the power to transform lives through primal adventure, and that you can never outgive good. For Miss Snazzy McBoots, what was it?
Snazzy McGee.
For Miss Snazzy McGee, Emily Stuchell, and Johnny Mack here at Soul Seekers, be blessed, everybody. Freedom on, and stay soulful. If you enjoyed today's podcast and want to support the show, you can always like, share, subscribe, and leave a rating, as it helps us share our mission of mentorship is conservation. Thank you so much for tuning in and being a part of Soul Seekers Nation as we transform lives through primal adventure. If you want to get more connected with the podcast, check out the Soul Seekers Nation Facebook group, as I look forward to connecting with you on the next episode. So stay tuned and stay soulful.